Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wild Free Will podcast. I'm curious about today's episode. Today is going to be interesting. We're going to dive right in. There's not really like an intro. There's nothing to say. We're just going to have the conversation. Lately on the podcast, we have been talking so much about my experience being like having this quantum leap, feeling like I have shifted, things have changed irrevocably in my life. My vibe is different, I'm different, everything has changed. And we've been talking a lot about the mindset of expanding and of creating space internally for new experiences to land. And we have been talking about doing the damn thing and going forward. And a lot of it has been focused on this forward momentum, which is really great. We love a good forward momentum moment. We love being in that energy. I mean, at least I do, especially after 2 years of being literally trapped in the mud. And like, it's just so interesting because like my perspective on what I was going through then from where I am now is just like, LOL, like all the ways in which you played small, all the ways in which you kept yourself stuck. And that'll be a conversation for another day, I'm sure. But the conversation that I want to have with you right now, why are you not showing up on my computer? The conversation that I want to have with you right now is about yes, we love forward momentum. Yes, we're going to continue talking about that. Yes, we're going to continue focusing on that because it's good and it's fun and frankly, it's really aligned with where I am right now. And so it's necessary that I speak about that because it's necessary that I speak about things from an aligned place because that's where the juice is. Like that is when you are going to get the most out of things because I am speaking so deeply from my truth and from my lived experience that like there's nothing more that I could possibly give you that would be more valuable than this. So we're going to keep having this conversation. But I was reflecting today and it was really interesting because one of the things that we've not talked about um, one of the things that we have not talked about in having this conversation is how many things I had to let go of to get to where I am right now. And I mean, the list is really freaking long. The list is really long. But like, let's start with some of the less pleasant things, okay? Instead of the awesome things. Let's start with like some of the stuff that was like harder or hurt a little bit more. I have had to remove myself from a lot of relationships. This is over the course of my entire experience, but I've had to either put in boundaries or take a step back or completely remove myself from situations and relationships that were no longer I don't even want to say that we're no longer serving me. No longer serving me is like literally, it's too positive to describe some of these situations that were actively holding me back. I was in a long-term relationship that I left in at the beginning of 2023. And that relationship, bless it and thank you and grateful. And like this person that I was with is not a bad human. Like there's nothing negative to say, but that relationship and my staying in it, my decision to stay in it was actively holding me back from reaching my full potential because just on a fundamental level, like we were not aligned as people. We did not share a common vision. We were not moving in the same direction. Like there was a lot of things that were going on then, but all of that is kind of irrelevant. The point is that I had to pull myself out of that space. It doesn't really matter why, but it matters that was holding me back. I was allowing it to hold me back, and I had to get the hell out of there in order to really be able to tap into something truer and deeper and much more real. And I don't mean in the sense of like the relationship that I'm in now. I mean in the sense of the relationship that I have with myself. I had to get myself out of this situation that was not working, that was not lifting me up, that was not bringing me to a higher level of myself, that was not showing me how good it could be. Like it was just actively just keeping me stuck. And at the same time, by a byproduct of that relationship was keeping me in situations where I was simply just not meant to be, just simply not meant to be. And so, like, there was a lot of shrinking and playing small and, like, kind of dimming my light and not wanting to stand out because it was creating problems and discomfort for other people. And for whatever reason, I have been in a learning curve of people pleasing over the last, probably decade, in all honesty, because in high school, let me tell you all the ways in which I was not a people pleaser. And if anyone from high school is listening to this, they can testify. There will be some kind of comment at some point in the future where somebody who knew me in high school will watch this and they will tell you all of the ways in which people pleasing was not a vibe that I embodied back then. But there was this 10-year period where I was being actively bullied. Actually, it started in probably university, which is really ironic, but I went through a period in my young adult life where I was being very heavily bullied by pretty much everyone around me, including partners, friends, and family. It's ridiculous. I allowed it to happen. I'm not blaming anybody because everybody is doing the best that they can, and sometimes people don't have access to the information necessary to behave well, and I mean that genuinely. Like, they don't know, and also hurt people, so there's so much emotional stuff happening at any given time. But there was a lot that was keeping me stuck, and there was a lot that was forcing me to dim my light. And I really do feel like this quantum leap that I experienced is something that has totally unlocked my fire. Like, it is just like, it's over. That period is done. Burn the fucking bridge, burn the boats. It's over. We are not going back. But I spent a lot of time in those spaces, and I needed to get the hell out of them in order for me to be in this space where I can actually flourish and thrive and be all of who I am, and genuinely be who I want to be, and not the version of me that I was trapped in for a really, really long time, where I was making myself smaller to make everybody else comfortable. Just yuck. In this, I've also let go of friendships, or allowed my friendships to naturally kind of shift and evolve, because I've realized, whether that be now or over the course of periods of time, that some of those relationships just they weren't serving me, or they weren't. Listen, that's not even, again, that is just so not it. That's so not it. In this case, it's actually more positive. So it's not that the relationships weren't serving me. They were beautiful. These people are wonderful humans. There is nothing bad to say about them, but the relationship stopped being a place where I could grow and elevate. And there were things about the relationships that I was in where I was being, again, actively held back by the perception that these people had of me. And I was being locked into a version of myself that I didn't want to be. And rather than asking the other person to change their perspective of me, I just chose to step away. This is not a conversation about whether this is the right or wrong way to do this, because this was what was right for me in that moment. And you may have a totally different opinion of this, experience of this. You may have a totally different solution for how you would handle this. And all of that is okay. The conversation that we're having today is about, we're making all of these changes, right? We've been talking in this series of podcast episodes about all of these changes and all of these ways to expand and get bigger and hold space for the thing. And it's like, but hey, where did that space come from? Where did that space come from in the first place? The space came from letting go of something that was previously occupying that space. That's how we create space. We can grow and get bigger and we can expand, like we were talking about a couple episodes back, but it's different than that too. It's we can expand, we can get bigger, and also there's probably some shit that we're all carrying that we could really do with putting down, in all honesty. So that's what I did. I just put it down. I wasn't carrying it anymore. And it needed to be let go of, because it was holding me to a standard and a version of myself that I was no longer occupying, willing to occupy, or wanting to occupy. Okay? It can be any of those three, because sometimes even when we're in the transition of kind of no longer wanting to occupy that space and we're moving forward, it gets hard to be in those containers that have us really locked into a certain way of being, right? And then another thing I had to let go of too, that fits into this, it's almost like a subcategory, is the opinions of others. Like I really had to let go of the way that other people defined me. And in some cases, I had to release the entire relationship or the entire situation. But in other cases, I just had to like be like, that's nice that you think that about me, but like, we're done with that. We're done with that. Yeah, just like there was no reason for me to continue holding on to that thing. And that perception of me, and this bleeds nicely into the next thing that I'm going to say, but that perception of me was locking me into an identity that I no longer wanted to embody. Okay. And then that takes me into the last kind of point here, which is like, aside from like the hard things of like the situations and the people and the things that I kind of had to physically release, but also, but also, I really had to get rid of some outdated ways of thinking, right? Like I had to get rid of some outdated modes of thinking and ways of moving in the world that were no longer serving me and that were no longer aligned with the version of me that I wanted to be. Now, how did all of this happen? Was this an active choice? In some cases, yes. I chose to leave the relationships. I chose to leave the friendships. That was an active choice. When I let go of the outdated ways of being and modes of thinking, it was very much a part of the quantum leap. It was not so much a conscious decision so much as it was this kind of just, and all of a sudden everything is different. Like everything changed from 1 minute to the next. It's like you hit rock bottom and all of a sudden you realize there's nowhere left to go but up. And in that moment, something in you snaps and like you move forward. It's something very akin to that. Okay. It's really, really like something very similar. Like in the literal blink of an eye, these ways of moving in the world, showing up, being the things I was tolerating, they all just shifted all at once. And again, I talked about this in other episodes. That wasn't necessarily possible if I didn't do the work up until now, if I hadn't been actively taking steps to kind of be in that space as well. So I think that the quantum leap happens in an instant, but the work that you put in up until that point still has a ton of value and has a massive impact. I don't think that we can ever take one or the other out of the conversation, if that makes sense. But I had to let go of this, all of these ways of being that just really weren't serving me anymore. And let me let you in on a secret. Okay, we are at about 2 months from when this massive shift happened in my life, which is like crazy to say. And then at the same time, it's like, well, that's nothing in the grand scheme of things. And both of those things I think are simultaneously true. But let me tell you what it looks like now, 2 months down the line. Now it looks like actively being there, releasing these things, because the identity shift happened in an instant, and that's great. And now I'm moving into my next level of identity, and the same thing needs to be done. So now we're back to the work and the steps, right? Which is recognizing the limiting beliefs and actively shifting them. And all of the work that I have been doing for the better side of like, I was 18 when I first started getting into personal development. It was when I was at university, when I was being bullied. That was my first introduction to like personal development, self-help, and all of these things. So it's almost been 20 years, which is, it's been 18 in case anybody wants to know. It's been specifically 18 years since I started like kind of with this work. And I've been coaching for, I've been actively coaching for 8 years now. So yeah, there was a point to this conversation, which was that I was now, sorry guys, the train went on without me. I have to like actively be there with the mindset work, right? But the mindset work hits differently than it used to. It hits so differently than it used to. I understand the work that I've been doing for the better part of 18 years better in the last 2 months than I have up until this point. Everything about my life has shifted. Everything about the way that I move in the world and everything that I believe and know, it's like it has integrated on such a like on a much, much, much deeper level. Like I feel like I have downloaded something, or I don't know, just it's like magic. I swear to you, it feels like magic. It isn't, because it's the culmination of 18 years of work, right? Of 18 years of being in this world, 18 years of studying this. But it feels like magic because it happened in such an intense and like kind of like stravolgente, that's the word in Italian, and like kind of like surprising, and like it just really like it, scombussolare. Man, why do I know all of the words today in Italian, but I don't know them in English? It's just this kind of thing that like turns your life upside down in a great way, in like a massive and the most positive way possible. But like, yeah, it's insane. And everything that I knew up until this point, I now know on a much, much deeper level. And I believe that you being here and listening to this podcast episode now, and like the podcast episodes since this has happened to me, I genuinely believe that you can feel the difference. Like I am vibing differently. I'm moving differently in the world. I have a totally different energy about me. And I feel like you can pick up on that. And if that is something that you have picked up on and you're like, oh, well, I want some of that too, then it's this though. Listen to the last like 4 or 5 episodes of the podcast and really sink into that energy, because that's it. I'm explaining every single thing that I did to get to this point, right? And if you want extra help, of course, you're welcome to reach out to me. But the point is really about like just recognizing how you're moving in the world, recognizing what you need to let go of to create space. If I had to put these in order, this step comes before the expansion and the inviting things in, which we talked about in other episodes, okay? But I came to this realization later, and so here we are doing things out of order. But yeah, because when you're letting go of the ways that you've been thinking that are really holding you back, and trust me, you will know what all of those things are. When you let them go, it's just you're making space for that fertile ground. You're making space in that fertile ground. It's basically like weeding, okay? We are weeding the ground that we've been talking about, where we are planting the seeds for the thing that we want to grow, for the thing that we are inviting in, right? So to recap, why is this important for anyone who is listening? Why is this relevant to you? This is not a how-to on how to have a quantum leap, because I don't think that that's how it works. I think that the universe gifts us with these moments when we're ready for them, when we can emotionally and physically handle them. And like before the moment when it happened to me, I don't think I would have been ready, in all honesty. So this is not a how-to on that. This is a how-to on how to till the soil of your life. So all of this is about, how do I get ready to have the best year of my life? How do I get ready to be the version of me that I want to be? How do I like create space for the life that I have been envisioning and dreaming of for myself? I have to let that shit go. Amen, amen, amen. I have to create space within my physical being. I have to make sure I'm at ground zero. I have to make sure that my system is calm and grounded. I have to make sure that I am, expanding. I have to create that space in my energetic field for the thing. And then I have to show up and actually do the damn thing. All of those things at the same time. And like, just let this play. Listen, you want to up-level your life. Just let this play on the background. Listen to the episodes of the podcast in the background of your life. Listen to them while you're driving or you're cooking or you're doing whatever it is. And like, if you don't vibe, don't listen to them, obviously, because like that's not the thing. Like, it's only if this really speaks to you, if I really speak to you, if my vibe and energy speaks to you. But put it on in the background and like let these concepts kind of sink in. And if the first time you hear these things, it's like, what the hell is she talking about? I've had this happen with me with teachers. There have been so many teachers where, kicking myself in the ass now, I found them early on in my like life, and instead of like being on board and like vibing with that person, I had to like walk away and then come back. And I ended up coming back to them like years later when their stuff was much more expensive, I just want to say. Because at the time it didn't vibe, right? And now everything that I'm hearing, even if I've heard it all before, even if I heard it like 10 years ago, or I heard it 3 years ago, or I heard it whatever, it's like hitting in such a different way. Because I am different, because I can hear it now, because I have space to like take it in and take it on board. So like, that's also something to keep in mind. when we're moving towards whatever it is that we're moving towards, we have to, like, we'll know when we're in the right moment for that, right? You will know. You will always, always know, because you always know. You always know. And on top of that, you get to decide, which we have episodes of the podcast for about that. Go back and listen to them. So, yes. Okay. This is where I leave you. I hope this episode was useful. If you want to connect with me more, you can find me in my Telegram group, the Wild Free Well Space. You can find a link to that in the show notes below on my website, whatever. You can search for it too in Telegram as well. I'd love to have you in there. I share even more private things, videos, voice notes, and all kinds of good stuff throughout the week, where I'm kind of like moving through my stuff in real time and showing you how I'm doing that as well. And just sharing like other thoughts and stuff that I don't necessarily share here on the podcast. You can also join my mailing list, where I send all kinds of goodies, and that will grant you access to my free resource library, where you can get ebooks and journal prompts and meditations and all kinds of mini courses and good stuff to help you move along your journey. And that is also an invitation to be more in my world. And otherwise, follow the podcast, like, subscribe, share, follow, all of that good stuff. And it means the world to me to have you here. So thank you for being here. I just hope you have the best weekend, and I will see you on the next episode of the podcast. Ciao.